Okay, we're going to talk to you about what to do if your shipment shows up and there's visible damage on it. So here's an example of a pallet that clearly has damage. It's been damaged on delivery by the carrier. And there's a couple things that I'm noting. You can see obviously the pallet's broken. There's visible damage to the product here on the side. And so the most important thing to do is don't refuse the shipment. Definitely accept it. But you're going to have paperwork that you have to sign with the carrier, and the most important thing to do there is do a rough count before you sign the paperwork of how many cartons you think are damaged. Don't worry about getting this 100% accurate, just do a pretty rough once over. There's a couple cartons here clearly that have damage. I'm going to walk around the pallet, take a look at other parts of the pallet to see what it looks like. But I notice any other visible damage, everything else looks pretty good. And so here it looks like 2 cartons are damaged. I'm going to make that note on the paperwork with the carrier. I'm going to take a bunch of photos of this before I accept it as well, just to be safe. And then once I sign that paperwork and give that back to the carrier and take this in the house, I can definitely open up a couple more cartons that maybe look suspect once you fully unwrap the pallet, just to see are there any other materials or cartons that are damaged. You can open up the cartons and inspect specific boards. You're not going to damage the material or hurt the material in any way. It's always good to do that, and take as many photos as possible, and make sure you contact us within 48 hours. Send us an email with a bunch of photos and just talking to us about kind of what happened, and then we'll get to work on getting replacements sent to you as soon as possible. Really, it's as easy as that. The documentation is the most important, and pictures always help. All right, I'm going to talk to you about how to identify damage to a specific board. So this is a carton that's been opened. Looked like it was damaged on delivery. The packaging was ripped, which typically looks kind of alarming, but at the end of the day is not. And it takes a closer inspection to identify if you can or cannot use the boards. So you can see part of the locking system was damaged. It was cracked when they wrapped it, and looked like as it moved, part of the straps kind of dug in and tore the locking system off, and there's a little bit of the tongue over here that's off. But let's flip the board over and take a look and see what happens. The most important thing to look for is there any damage to the top layer of wood, and there isn't. Everything looks good. So this board right here can definitely be used. I'm gonna look down the board and everything else looks fine. Even having this part of the locking system damaged is not cause for concern. You can actually use these boards even if up to 50% of the locking system is damaged, but these boards will lock together just fine, so stapling or gluing or floating, still no problem at all. Let's take a look at another board. This one's similar, damage to the locking system, no damage to the top layer of wood. Everything else looks fine on that plank. Here's another one, looks like some damage to the tongue. And let's flip it over and see. Damage to the tongue over here, but not a problem. Still top layer of wood's fine, and you can just take these pieces off. Here's damage to the tongue and also to the top layer of wood, so it's been impacted, so this board can't be used. Typically we would want to replace it, but if your project timeline is really tight and you just can't wait for replacements from us, you could just cut this board off and use the rest as a starter or end piece, which typically works just fine, as a way to just utilize timeline in a better way. So it's always important to inspect the planks on cartons that do look that they have a lot of damage. A lot of times all the boards can be used just fine, and that's why you just want to take the time to inspect it. But yeah, take a bunch of photos. You can always ask us, get our opinion too. Happy to help.